Welcome to the channel. Thanks for being here. Today we're taking test rides on a couple of different Suzukis. This ride is part of a demo weekend that Suzuki had about an hour and a half from my place. I wasn't able to come up both days. I wish I had, because this place was packed out. I was only able to ride 3 bikes for the entire day because there were so many people signing up to ride. For insurance reasons, Suzuki does not allow you to ride some of the higher powered bikes until you've had your motorcycle endorsement for at least 3 years. I'm a few months shy of that, so was limited on what bikes I could ride. When I initially signed up, I was told basically anything 1000cc or over. Since that includes the M109R Power Cruiser, I assumed I couldn't ride that. I found out later that was an incorrect assumption. What they should have said is that until you have your motorcycle endorsement for 3 years, you can't ride a Hayabusa or the 1000cc GSX-R bikes. There was a 1000cc naked bike, the GSX S1000, that I could have ridden if I wanted, and apparently I could have ridden the M109. But the guy at the booth said anything 1000cc or over. He didn't specify which ones. Anyway, that won't be an issue next year if I do another Suzuki demo weekend. So instead of jumping on the M109R like I was hoping for the first ride, I rode the C50 as my first ride. This is an 805cc 5-speed bike with a shaft drive and buckhorn handlebars that remind me of the Indian Springfield actually. It has a 4-gallon tank and weighs 610 pounds. Price is a very reasonable $9,300 for a cruiser. A 600-pound bike with only 800cc engine means the power to weight ratio isn't great, and it doesn't accelerate very fast. I can see why they kept this bike at the back of the line. It lagged behind the rest of the Suzuki Sport and Naked bikes a bit when accelerating. The bike is fairly low to the ground and the pegs scrape quite easily. It was a nice ride. The bike is definitely designed for relaxed cruising. Nothing spectacular, not a bike I would purchase. If you're new to riding and want a cruiser but don't want a heavy cruiser like the Indian Chieftains or Harley Street Glides, those kinds of bikes, I would actually recommend something like an Indian Scout or a Kawasaki Vulcan S instead of this. Next up is the Suzuki GSX 8S street bike. There are 2 GSX 8 bikes. The 8S is the street bike and the 8R is the sport version. The 8S supposedly has a slightly more upright sitting position, so I chose that since I'm not really into sport bike riding. Incidentally, I have a video of the full 2024 Suzuki lineup here where you can see all the bikes and their associated specs. This bike has a 776cc parallel twin with a 3.7 gallon tank and weighs 445 pounds. It starts at 9,000 and has a 31.9 inch seat height. If you watched my Indian FTR review here, you'll know that I am short and finally decided to venture into the realm of taller seat heights and had no issues with the FTR at 31.7 inches. So this one was fine as well at a 1/4 inch higher. Because the bike and seat are very narrow, it is very easy to keep your right foot on the right peg and flat foot the bike with your left foot. It took me a bit to get comfortable on this bike because of the forward lean on the bike. It felt like I had to push down on the right or left side of the bars to countersteer instead of pushing forward. This bike is very nimble, very easy to handle, and a lot of fun. I wouldn't ride this bike for very long. We were out for about 20 to 25 minutes and my butt was already starting to get sore, as were my wrists from leaning on them. I was trying to use my torso to hold myself up from the bars instead of resting my upper body weight on my wrists, but that didn't hold for very long. So this is a great bike if you're looking for something to zip around town or take for a short ride through the twisties. Lots of fun to ride. Very light and easy to handle. Last is the Suzuki V-Strom 800. Yes, this short guy rode an adventure bike with a 32.5 inch seat height. The V-Strom 800 also has a 776cc parallel twin. It has a 5.3 gallon tank and weighs just shy of 500 pounds. On the FTR and 8S, I could put both toes on the ground if I wanted. Sitting on this bike, I could not even tiptoe both feet at the same time. I could only put one foot on the ground at a time. With my right foot on the peg, I could not even flat foot my left foot. I was only able to get the ball of my left foot on the ground. But this bike was very well balanced. It was very easy to one foot this bike at a stop. It was also very easy to keep the bike balanced coming to a stop, even with just the toes of my left foot on the ground. I found out right before the ride started that this bike, along with a few others, has a quick shifter, meaning that you don't have to use the clutch when shifting gears. I tried it, dropped the throttle, shift without the clutch. It works, but it still has an uncomfortable clunk to it. I'm not a fan. I ended up switching back to using the clutch anyway. The first two bikes I rode didn't have any wind protection. This one has a windshield that is pretty much useless. I don't think I noticed any real difference in the wind at all. It is an adjustable windshield. I don't know which position it was in. Maybe adjusting it up would help, but I doubt it would help enough. The seat was not terribly comfortable. It felt pretty much the same as the 8S. It also has some forward lean to it, with my wrist starting to get sore by the end of the ride. So this bike would definitely need a more comfortable seat or seat cushion and some risers on the bars to make it a more upright riding position before I would even consider riding it for more than an hour. It would also need a better windshield. This bike was fun to ride all in all, but definitely hit the limit of what I'm willing to ride in terms of seat height. I actually sat on the DRZ 400, which has something like a 34-inch seat height. I definitely wouldn't want to do anything with that. That bike is so narrow, I think I could ride it, but I don't have any desire to other than to say I did it. The 32.5-inch seat on the V-Strom 800 is higher than I would consider for me for a bike purchase. Yes, I was able to ride it without any problems, but I wouldn't want to do so regularly. I just didn't find it comfortable. And honestly, while this was a nice ride, I don't know that I would want an adventure bike as a second bike anyway, if I can ever afford to have two bikes at one time. But looking at it objectively, this is a nice bike, fun and easy to ride. It just needs tweaked a bit to make it more comfortable. One thing is for sure, when I got off this tall, light bike and went back to my heavy, low street glide, it took a couple minutes to adjust. So there you have it, folks. A cruiser, a street bike, and an adventure bike all in one day. I'm really enjoying getting some time on a wide variety of bikes to expand my palette. Hopefully you're finding these reviews helpful. If you are, please subscribe and like. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.